Hi everyone, this is episode 2, Composition in Photography. Composition is the way you arrange elements within an image that helps you to tell the story you have in your mind effectively. There are different rules you follow in composing an image. Since photography is basically an art form, you're free to break these rules. But in order to creatively break them, first you have to know what are those rules and why do they exist. So in today's episode, we are going to discuss about how to compose an image following these rules. The first composition technique we are going to discuss is rule of thirds. Imagine your frame has two equally spaced horizontal lines and two equally spaced vertical lines, thereby breaking it into 9 equal parts. Now, rule of thirds is applied by aligning your subject with these lines or their intersection points. Normally, when you take a picture, you have the tendency to position the subject in the center of your frame. But if you position the subject a little off-center using the rule of thirds, the picture creates more impact. To compose the image more easily, you can select the option in your camera to show grid lines. In this particular example, you can place the subject either on the left vertical line or on the right vertical line. Now when you see both the pictures, you will know that the picture with the subject on the right vertical line has more impact. Why is it so? It's because the subject is looking towards the left of your frame, and giving more space on the left will give more life to the picture. If you do it the other way, it will create a lot of empty space on the right hand side of your frame, and also the subject gets sidelined, thereby not getting enough attention. If your subject is walking or moving towards a particular direction, which is called action space, you always give more space in that direction. Next is leading lines. There are lines everywhere, but in photography, it's about how you use them. If you can use the lines in your frame so that it all lead to the subject, you can bring more attention to the subject. In this particular example, if you use all the available lines from the staircase and building to lead up to your subject, then it brings more attention to the subject. This technique can be used when you photograph locations like footpath, rail track, buildings, etc. The lines do not necessarily have to be straight. This technique works even when you have zigzag lines or oblique lines. It's all about how you place the subject where these lines end. The next composition technique is symmetry. Symmetry is achieved when both sides of the image hold equal weight. You can split your frame vertically or horizontally depending on the subject you're shooting. If your location is a river, you can keep the subject in one half of the frame and its reflection in the other half. Studies show that human brain loves symmetry. This is apparently the reason why symmetry photography is so visually appealing. Next is patterns. Patterns are found where some elements repeat themselves. You can see patterns in nature, in architecture, and in your daily life. It's a very effective method to creatively use patterns to click great pictures. Sometimes we add a specific element to break a pattern, resulting in even more beautiful pictures. Next comes frame in a frame. Frame in a frame is that photography technique where you use a visual element in the image to frame the primary subject. This brings more beauty to the subject. Take the example of this toy van. If you simply click a picture, it will look very normal. But if you add a visual element in the form of a frame using a book like this, you will see that difference. Let's take another example of this dancer. While the dancer is dancing, the frame behind the dancer is helping us to bring more attention to the dancer. So while composing an image, it's always better to look for a special frame which we can include in our frame to make it look more beautiful. Use of negative space. Positive space is the space where our main subject is, and negative space is the space around it. Take the example of this tomato. If you place the tomato in the center or take a close-up picture of it, you'll get a very normal picture. But if you use some negative space around it, it'll make your subject more visually appealing. You can execute some really cool minimalistic concepts using this technique. So in general, photography is not about expensive gear or really cool locations. What matters the most is an eye for beauty. Every photograph has a story behind it, and it's all about how effectively you are able to tell that story using your frame. So the next time you take out your camera when you see something really cool, try to look it in a different angle. Try to bring that storyteller in you. That's all for today's session. See you in the next, where you will learn about macro photography.